Tonight we'll talk about one specific topic, and in future we plan to make it a weekly or bi-weekly presentation,
Bi-monthly.
uh, bi-monthly presentation to you. And at that time, we hope we'll be able to get some feedback from you, the listeners and viewers, and at least be able to call in and ask questions from the panel. But tonight, we'll just start with presentation to you and hope that it will be something that will be beneficial to you, not only to men and boys, but to the community as a whole, in terms of how we view men, how we view boys, and their attitudes towards the community, and hope that we can at least enhance some of the norms or some of the questions that you may have concerning men in the community and the problems sometimes that we have with our youngsters. Therefore, tonight as we begin, we'll first, again, my name is Philip Mills, the president of the Men's Council, and I will just let you introduce the others. Three members introduce themselves shortly before we start into the debate.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Blake. I am a long-standing, quote-unquote, member of the Men's Council because the Men's Council itself has not been around for very long, but I have been there from the beginning. Excuse me. And I have associated myself with the entity because I think it has the potential, given the quality of the members, the men involved, to effect change. One of the basic remits of the council is to empower men so that they can be better husbands and fathers and brothers and whatever the other functions and roles of men are in society. We believe that we in the Men's Council, we are hoping that we can engage in activities, we can undertake projects, we can implement plans which are designed to build men so that they in turn can build their families and by extension the community. This evening, as the President would have intimated, we want to talk about the role of men in their various capacities. Alright, so I'm going to talk for a few minutes, make a few general statements as it were, and then we'll hear from the other members. They will introduce themselves as well before they begin to speak. The President omitted to inform that we will be here for about an hour, and on the second episode, the second edition, this is our very first, we will hopefully entertain interventions from you, the listening public. You can call in, you can make comments, you can ask questions, you can point out inconsistencies in what we say or errors in what we present, so that we can enrich the exercise and in the process learn from each other. So the role of men as husbands, as partners, as sons and brothers and fathers. All of us are aware that in St. Kitts, in Nevis, in St. Lucia, in Trinidad, all the islands of the Caribbean, and particularly in the countries which we refer to as the West, and of course the West we essentially refer to Western Europe, the Americas, including of course the Great United States, and these are territories which are born out of a Judeo-Christian ethic. That what obtains in the West with respect to how men carry themselves is different in a number of ways, in some cases fundamentally, from what exists in other territories of the world. But I believe that there are certain commonalities which run the gamut of the role of men wherever they find themselves, wherever we find ourselves. So, when we speak of the role, we define that to mean the duties and responsibilities and expectations of men. But these would be determined, ladies and gentlemen, by norms and customs and tradition and law and religion. So what a man is expected to do in St. Kitts and in Guyana and in the United States and in France certainly would have some common threads with what a man is expected to do in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in Mali, in Mongolia, and in the uttermost parts of the earth. But at the same time, there will be some differences based on tradition, culture, customs, norms, and mores. Here in St. Kitts and the Caribbean, we believe that men are supposed to operate primarily as providers and protectors. And in my humble opinion, those are the two basic functions of men, whether they be brothers, uncles, husbands, wives, to be providers and protectors. And we can't escape the fact that Almighty God, in His wisdom, when He created man, He Himself prescribed and circumscribed certain roles of men. And I want to argue, if you wish, that it's because men have veered away from and diverted in fundamental ways from those instructions by the Creator, which is why we have so many problems, and men have perverted their roles. A lot of theories have been propounded as to what men should do and shouldn't do. We have theories premising on sociology, on theology, on anthropology, and on law. The time does not permit, of course, for us to delve into any detail in these various theories as to the role of men, and to define those roles in a St. Kitts context, St. Kitts and Nevis context. And forgive me if I say St. Kitts alone, but I really mean St. Kitts and Nevis. All right? And if we look at some of the case studies, we will find that the role of men differs according to location and according to culture. In as much as I said earlier, some of these roles are universal, they are immutable, and they are absolute. Because the roles of men are not honored as prescribed by the Creator and by law and tradition and so on, because they're not honored, because they're not practiced or observed, then we have a lot of problems in society. And so men do not protect and provide as they ought, as husbands, partners, sons, brothers, and fathers. That's my opening intro, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to the next edition when really you can converse with us, dialogue with us, so we can, like I said, learn from each other. But I rest for now. I might be able to come in again before the time elapses, and I'm happy now to turn over to another member of the Men's Council.
Good day to one and all. My name is Dwight Berridge, and I am the treasurer of the St. Kitts National Men's Council. I've been involved in the council since 2017, and I have found the council to be very beneficial, very rewarding. I learn a lot. I'm able to discuss ideas, able to participate in meaningful activities. Now, as we are discussing the role of men in the society, in the family, and so on, men are very important, and I agree with the previous speaker that men are to be providers. They are to be role models, supporting the family emotionally, spiritually, financially. They are to be protectors, they are to be leaders, they are to be teachers, role model, a nurturer, a maintainer. But we find that today, many men are shirking their responsibility. What are they doing? They're not presenting themselves or taking that position, as it were, that they ought to in society. A lady said to me the other day, the problem with the world is that men are not being men. There are too many. She says that the men are very whimsy and flimsy and, a bit. She just cannot see what men are doing. a colleague and I, we were calling a gentleman, and he took forever to come out. When he came out, he said, he didn't, he said, I'm coming back or something. Then she was trying to get his attention as well. She was calling him, and he didn't give any response. And when she came and she saw us waiting, she said, what are y'all doing? Y'all saw me. I called him, man, and we said we were here calling him too. She said, that's the problem with y'all men. And you all know that they're calling him. Y'all should have said to me that you were calling him too, and he didn't get a response. Why y'all don't stand up as men and take the lead, take a role, take your leading position? She just doesn't understand what's going on in this world when it comes to men, and she's not criticizing men, or she as a woman, she wants men to take charge. They're not taking charge, and so that is something that we have to consider, the man's role in the family. It varies, like a colleague said, across cultures, but men often occupy similar roles throughout their lives. And we are seeing a situation today where we have two parent families, and sometimes two women, and sometimes two men. It's very disturbing. Mothers sometimes are fulfilling the role of men as fathers, and that is very troubling. I now turn it over to another member.
Yeah, blessed greetings, all ones and ones. So my name is Agard, Elvin Agard actually. Could be called Guda, baptismal name, Christian ministry and all. So yeah, since the inception of the Men Council, yeah, I've been there with there's a lot of struggles to get men to come together to at least form this group, or at least come together for the betterment of men. And that seemed to be a struggle with a whole lot of other things. I mean, men seem to be more involved in vulgarities and a lot of perversions and so on. But when it comes to these type of sit down where we speak of issues pertaining to men in terms of the morality and all of that, we find that men seem to be shying away from these type of conversation. So, I think the whole idea of the gender role of men, starting from the whole setting of creation, where he said that the Almighty created man in his own image and likeness. And further down in the story, we know that he brought along a woman to be a helpmate, and then things just went haywire after there. But then I would just like to even read something as part of my conversation. If some of you would turn to Deuteronomy 6, starting from verse 4, it says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Verse 7, and thou shalt teach them, this is the part that I really want to mention, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walk in the way, and when thou lie down, and when thou rise up, and thou shalt bind them upon thy hand as a sign, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. So Deuteronomy is one of those books that Moses wrote that gave instructions for how men, women, how we should be living in a society. And the instructions were that the morality, the commandments, the laws, the rules, and all of the things that the Almighty have set for man to do in terms of the generation, them just moving on from one generation to the next. We see that with this which I just read, I don't know if anyone in the Caribbean actually is doing this today. But we know that we have a whole lot of churches, we have a whole lot of different set of religion and so on. And this task that I would want to call a simple task seem to be, something difficult to accomplish. But I think that the role of men really has been truly perverted, as Member Blake uttered earlier. And we, as men, having this sit down to speak of these things, to at least try to see how we could set some pointers, some markers in our conversations going forward to see how can we help to put things back on track so that we could go forward into at least securing that situation with men and their roles. Yeah, give thanks for now.
Okay, to continue, the one of the things we want to consider again, trying to define the specific role that men should play in society. And of course, when you speak of men, you automatically have to counter with how do you address women. You have to live together, we have to communicate, and we have to adjust ourselves that we follow the norms of our society. However, in time, these norms get sidetracked, they get diverted, they get misused, they get misinterpreted as to what rules we're going to follow and how we're going to follow them. They think that we part of society, and the Men's Council is trying to portray a stand that men need to take. We find that in some cases in society that the men fall short of what society is expected of them. Of course, when we deal with men, in most cases we have a family, which would involve male, female, and sometimes children, which changes the dynamic quite a bit, because you have the female with her ideas and norms, you have the male, same thing, and they may not agree. If you have children who are at least even in puberty, are old enough to start exposing their own ideas into the family and how they react on the outside. And of course, each and every one, male, female, child, they are going to be exposed in some way or other to the outside. So they have a family dynamic and they have a outside dynamic. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't. And this is sometimes where the problem occurs, in trying to find out if you have two opposing situations, two opposing thoughts. They may not necessarily be right or wrong, but they may conflict or counteract each other. And a family, in most times, have to decide which rule to follow. Generally, there are lawful laws to follow, and there could be diversions or misinterpretations of other laws. They may not be illegal, but they just fall short of being goals or thoughts that the family should embrace to make sure that the family moves ahead in a way that they could be considered useful members of the society. So we have a problem again, because we know that men and women, and even children, they are taught or have been taught up through their educational years differently. My generation and the younger generation definitely would definitely have been taught probably the same thing on different levels, and that's not unusual. People change, things change, the community changes, and there's always continuous change as we grow older. So the problem sometimes arises when we are not changing as much as, or maybe even faster than, the society itself changes. And of course, you have the society, which is going to be sometimes managed by technology, which drives a lot of how we behave these days. Technology, as you know, has been progressing so much faster than the older population would have known, or been accustomed to, or been taught. So there's a constant way of having to adapt to different things. The problems with that, if you have a a norm and it changes as you go up through the years, and you misinterpret some of the norms that are supposed to be useful to society, then you'll find that your conflict is going to arise within the family, within the community as a whole. So we have to balance that, and it has to be balanced by people who know exactly how we need to progress. Because if we are diverting from what, let's say, a section of the community needs to absorb, and we've been absorbed in different ways because it might be taught by different people who have different thoughts and just cannot get a consensus of which way to go. So we have a problem, and this is one way in which we have to find ways of softening how we change or adapt to certain things. And we hope that along the way we find solutions. There's not going to be one solution for every problem, but as society we learn to adapt and change, hopefully for the best.
Okay, if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, I can like to come in here again briefly. Remember Dwight spoke about men and their duty to support in a number of ways their families, spiritually and financially in particular. Those caught my attention because I have learned a long time ago that one cannot lead to where he does not go, and one cannot teach what he does not know. And so I find that in St. Kitts, as obtained in many countries of the West, a lot of which I have had the privilege of visiting, by the way, that men are lacking with respect to spiritual strength and spirituality generally. So I'm not so sure how much they can lead in that direction, since they themselves are very much in need of it themselves. I'm not so sure if men generally, and always remember in sociology we learned that anything above 5% is statistically significant. So when we speak, we're speaking generally, because nothing applies to all men or to all women or to all human beings, except that we need air to breathe. Alright? That is the only thing that is common to all men. Everything else, there are exceptions. There are differences. There are anomalies. So a lot of men, they're financially, not just financially destitute, but they're financially responsible. Here in St. Kitts, we see men on a Friday evening, for example, going down to the various domino boards, and all they do, and some of them gamble. They spend half, if not all, of their week's wages buying rounds of beers or rounds of stag or the other things, skull for the boys. And then, of course, they have problems meeting their financial commitments, both to themselves and to their children and to their partners. So, the Men's Council has a challenging task to try to change that kind of paradigm. In fact, a lot of males are not really men. They are biologically males because they were born with male organ. But they're not men in the spiritual, in the sociological, if you wish, sense, because a man is more than just an individual with a penis, so to speak, in my view, at least. And so a lot of males, they need to learn, and that is a major challenge, like I said, for the Men's Council, to try to get men, try to get all the males to understand that there is a particular connotation, a particular duty, role, responsibility, all of that, of a man. And being a male is not just being able to have sexual relations, for example, with all the females available. Right? Or have a big man. I have 10 women now, and I have 15 children by 20 different. That is a perverted and distorted view of being male. Because in my view, that's not being a man. That is not being a man. A man suggests and entails responsibility, a focus, an understanding of what his function in society is. Why is he placed on earth? What is his purpose for being on this earth? And why does he find himself in this particular locale called St. Kitts? There must be some logical, rational explanation for that. I don't think anything happens by chance. Almighty God in heaven is too wise and too knowledgeable and too omnipotent and omniscient to just let things happen willy-nilly, just like that. So, the challenge for us, Mr. President and other members of the Business Council here, is for us to craft and devise ways to try to get men to understand that being a man is a step beyond just being male. Just like being a lady in my books, in my definition, in my vocabulary, is a step beyond being just a woman. Ladyhood is womanhood taking a step further. So that all females, if they're adults, they're women, but not all women are ladies. All males, as I said earlier, are not men. That's I wanted to make that point. Another thing I wanted to point out with respect to something that was mentioned earlier is that some women have to operate as fathers. It's not really possible we hear that all the time. In fact, some of us would have read the book, My Mother Who Fathered Me. I forgot the name of the author right now. Alright? And we sing songs that speak of women operating as fathers. I understand that there's some women who stand up on Father's Day when it is asked that fathers stand, some women stand up because his father dead long time, or his father never looked after him, his father is an SOB and so on. So the mother stand up and other women applaud. Right? I'm not so sure if I were to stand up as a mother when mothers are asked for on Mother's Day, how that would be received. But the point is, when we examine it really, can a woman perform the role of a man? I don't think so. I do not think so. I think that men and women are physically, biologically, fundamentally different from each other. Rudyard Kipling was not the nicest of men, but he wrote an excellent piece entitled "The Female of the Species is Different from the Male." Of course, he also wrote another excellent piece entitled "If." But Kipling was right. Women are different from men. A woman can do what might not be traditional for a woman to do. But I can't say a woman teaching a boy to be a man. Because one cannot teach what he does not know, and one cannot lead to where he does not go. I, for example, cannot teach anyone to be a good basketballer. I've never played basketball in my life. It's about the only sport that is played in St. Kitts that I've never played. So I can't tell a guy, hey, this is the tactic you should use, this is the strategy you should employ, this is the move you should make. I don't know nothing about basketball. I never even looked at a match. So I'm not a basketballer. Alright? I can give advice on table tennis and volleyball and the other sports that I have been involved in. So can a woman perform the role of a man? And that is something I would have liked if you members of the audience were able to give some feedback on. What do you think? Alright, but I wanted to make just one more point before I rest again. Member Egan in particular might have some thoughts on this. There was a point when women engaged in what they call the liberation movement, women liberation movement, where they wanted to move out of the home and move beyond the confines, quote unquote, of the patriarchal unit, where they were no longer under the direct control of men, as still obtained in some society. We know that very well. Just a couple of years ago, for example, women got the right to drive in Saudi Arabia and to move about without constant presence of a male relative. But did men begin to lose their sense of responsibility, Mr. President? Did men begin to forget about their role and to discharge their role as protectors and providers simultaneous with the rise of the feminist movement of women liberation? In other words, is it that men began to tell themselves, well, the woman is out there now, so she should take on the role that I alone used to take on. Let her take on some of that because she says she's free now. She's liberated. She's liberated now. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Okay, I rest again.
Yeah, bless. Yeah, you know, blessed be the word, blessed be the sound, and blessed to the spirit of the Most High. Yeah, I think that in terms of this liberation movement, it actually started with the Willie Lynch letters. You know, it didn't really just start by how we may have heard it, but if you look at the history, the letters were suggesting that in order to keep the generation of men to go on for like maybe the next 300 years, because the letters actually speak to a time span of 300 years. We have not been freed from slavery 300 years. We're just about 150 years out of slavery. The Chinese around for like 5,000 years without interruption. The Indians probably longer than that. So we are like adopting, you know, things from other nations, Europe specifically, and so on and so on. But the idea of women moving away from certain system in terms of the patriarchy and all of that was a control mechanism to weaken a black family, a black society, a black community. So the men, therefore, I mean, if we look at St. Kitts Nevis right now, if you go to all the government departments one by one, I would estimate and say at least 95% of the employees are female. You go to the school system, is like 99% are female. So, and then you
As teachers, you mean?
as
Yeah.
teachers,
Yeah.
yeah. And also there's this saying about I'm a strong black independent woman. The Almighty never created us to be independent. Matter of fact, if we look at the biblical aspect of it, they talk about the men who should love their wife as Christ loved his church, where he gave himself for it. And he talk about women being submissive. But a woman cannot be submissive unless that love for the church as Christ had, a man could give that love to his wife to activate that submissiveness. And a lot of men don't activate it, but yet they want it. You know, so I think that men, as earlier was mentioned, has perverted every way that they were supposed to be chatting. And now, as this feminist movement rise, as Member Blake suggests, that men may have gotten a little bit lazy and realized, well, okay, well, if they want to take over, let it go ahead. But while that was happening, you had a group of men in the background, actually in more perversion, is championing this LGBTQ movement. You know? So you find today, for instance, if a woman say, you know, I'm a male, there's nothing that she can enter in a male dominated sport and win. But if a man say, I'm a female, and enter any sport, any woman's sport, he can go and dominate that sport.
And that is what is happening.
So you find that the perversion of men didn't stop there. It just continued in a more perverse way. Right now, it is an abomination, actually, where some men have gone. And this LGBTQ movement is now basically silencing the feminist movement because men are taking control of it.
Let me interject something here before you continue.
Yeah.
I understand, understanding today that a lot of women, young women, voted for Trump because Trump is seen as being far more open to putting a stop to transgender men taking part in women's sports,
Right.
which of course is to their detriment.
Right.
Because you correctly said, any sport that a man enters, any woman's sport, he's going to dominate.
He's gonna dominate.
And that is what's been happening in the United States. They've been complaining bitterly, and they see Trump as the man to put an end to that. And so that is why he received a lot of votes.
Right.
Yeah, just wanted to interject that.
And he did say, in his view, a man and a woman are the only two genders that
I support Trump with that.
he deal with.
No question about that.
So, you know, so we have a lot of things going on in society, and those stuff that Member Blake was laying out there, you know, sometimes it's like where to begin. because we know, like right here in St. Kitts, for instance, where I live, there's a festival going on currently. I think they call it Guy Fest or some story like that. Now, when I was growing up, they did have something like that. And for me, what I'm seeing is that this educational mechanism that we have adopted is not for the benefit of our children, and is like we're more seemingly into banking, marrying education system where you send your child to school, learn enough of something that can come out and service the system until they retire, then they collect the money and die. It's just a short span of everything. No true development in the sense of a person knowing themselves. Because as far as I know, the way the school curriculum is set up now, there's not one single subject there that help any child to become a better person. Yeah, they could count better. They could probably read a book, but in the terms of becoming a better person, a more moral conscious person, a more self-conscious person, there's no subject that teaches any of that or facilitate that processing anyway. So, I mean, remember Blake is and was an educator. He could correct me there, but from what I've heard the elders spoke of, there was this subject they call civics. I think it's civics they called it.
Mhm.
That seemed to be a subject that was doing such a thing. And for some strange reason, that subject is gone. Now left the youths them with just coming out as robots, go to the bank, take a loan, go to college, come back, take a next loan, then you consolidate your loan, you work for a couple of years, you retire, you come out, you stop move, your brain work out, you're done, you get senile, and then you're just dead. This is the system that we are forcing our children them to follow.
What a word.
So
Knowledge, values, and attitudes is as part of the different objectives in lesson planning. So the part really helping persons to be better. That's where the values, and then you have the skills and the
Well, there's a
attitudes.
subject
I would
matter.
suggest that member Berries not try to defend a clearly broken, deficient education system. And we're going to deal with that at a different topic at a different time.
Right, definitely.
Right. But remember, you guys is right. That perhaps one of the reasons why men are not doing what they ought to do is that the education system does not teach them that, does not emphasize that. So they're ignorant, and one cannot lead to where he does not go. One cannot teach what he does not know. And so sometimes maybe, Mr. President, we really can't blame the youngsters or the children because they have not been taught.
They have not been taught. They have not been taught.
Mm.
And we could see this in the school. We see this in religion. We see this in society.
Relationships. Yeah.
We see it in relationships. We see it everywhere you go. And that deficiency in terms of how, like, what do you copy or what do you emulate in our society right now in terms of, let's say, the men in the high offices, prime minister, the deputy prime minister, the minister of ABC and such and come down, the head teachers and men who are in leading positions. The question we have to ask are the men in leading positions leading, or is it just that they're in the position to lead and the true leaders them that just can't seem to get into these positions to actually take the responsibility to lead?
I put it this way: men are in leadership positions, but they are not leading.
Right.
Yeah.
So men ask for a lot. I mean, back to the same Bible course I just mentioned, because I actually heard arguments between husbands and wives where the husband is upset because his wife is not being submissive. But while the wife was not arguing back, I was able to argue her point for her to say, well, unless that love don't activate that submissiveness, you have to stalemate.
Problem there.
So because the love of the man need to be present in order to stimulate and activate that submissiveness in the woman. And look, this is so natural. This is so natural because like we are designed to be that way. That when the man actually do demonstrate that, it's like it's almost automatically you see the woman just be in her submissive nature. And while some people still trying to corrupt certain things within the wall, you find that this gender equality, which is impossible to achieve, just like you want to achieve like eliminating teenage pregnancy. We try to do things that is impossible to achieve, and at the same time while doing it, I don't know if it's a sense of relevancy, because it would take forever and more for any of these things to be achieved. Because number one, the way we are created, and I could be wrong here, but the way we are created, a woman having a baby as a like a adult teenager is a much healthier pregnancy than if the woman is in her 30s. And that's a biological truth as far as
Well, it has
some
been
stuff
long
that
established that the best years for childbearing are between 19 and 29.
that's why I say adult teenage.
Yeah.
You know,
That's been
so
established.
but yet there's this war against teenage pregnancy. And the funny thing about this war is that the war does not go against the man who is impregnating the girls. It goes against the girl who is pregnant. So every time you hear teenage pregnancy, the first thing you see is a girl with a big belly. And then women too would pass by the way and be cussing out the young girl with a big belly. Nobody ever asks the question who the man is, who made who impregnated her. Then there's war on this. Now, one of the rappers I used to listen to, except for the latter course word, Tupac would say, why not wage a war on poverty? It was said when they had that war with Iraq that the money that was spent to deal with the war could have taken every single person who is in poverty in the world today out of poverty. The money they spend in that war, right? I'm not saying it's got some money moving around, and I would want to go out on a limb to say that I think we have enough money to move everybody from the poverty level and bring them up. But there's some people who just in excess and seem to love to be in excess, and this is something that even for the Christian-minded people, that the book itself speak against excess. I mean, well, you don't got millions on the bank book out there, and Agard and Dwight here ain't saying nothing much. Well, maybe Agard and not Dwight.
You gotta believe. You gotta believe. So they're not building that.
Yeah. And men are who actually running a lot of these things, because men are at the very top. Most Caribbean countries, men are at the very top. The cabinet, mostly men. Then the departments, mostly women. Then who is at the very bottom? Men. So men is at the top level and at the bottom level.
Yeah, but at the top level, they're very small numbers.
Small numbers.
At the bottom level, hordes, the masses.
Yeah. So men. One time I remember listening to a lady reading this article from, I think, the UN or the EU, I don't remember which one. But the article seemed to suggest that women are being taken advantage of maybe in the Caribbean. So, in listening that, I was very confused, because I said, no, nothing saying it. According to how the workforce is, women are working. A lot of men not working. Women are homeowners. A lot of men ain't got no space to stay home with the mom. I know families where the girls move out before the men.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I could at least defend it in this way to say that, yeah, traditionally the male takes over the estate to keep it in the family. So sometimes you have that situation, but this is not the case. This is just some lazy fellas just don't want to move. You check all of the project houses and so on, a high percentage are women. The men them who have some kind of car with shiny rims and so on don't have no home.
The NHC would tell you that the vast majority of applicants for houses of all size and type are females.
Exactly. So, and I'm glad you said that. So if you dial back to school days, we know that for some reason women seem to mature faster than men. That's why you see that a woman, when she take a husband, he's normally a couple of years older, because that is the way
To balance
to bring that balance and match or maturity. So while the fellas them want to play with toy truck and all kind of things, the woman ready to start a family. So she can be with somebody her own age. That he more than likely still want to play with toy truck and toy soldiers and what's not, but the woman ready to start a family. So we see that kind of offset there sometimes, and then sometimes we still even look at it that, some women might somehow still end up with a male around her age, and then sometimes it go well, sometimes it's chaotic, but often the women seem to be more mature. But the men, I always say, have dropped the ball, and while the men council is here, I mean, we've been on the radio, we've been on TV, we've been on social media. I don't know where we have not been, and for some reason we just can't get men to come along.
Well, if I must add, the president said that technology and other factors he mentioned are changing the family structure, changing the way we men operate, and society is changing. So the word that you have mentioned so far, you said traditionally.
Mhm.
When you look at what obtains now, you can see that there is like Member Blake, you said, a paradigm shift. Things are changing. The definition of or the role of men, the definition of the family, because you mentioned the curriculum, and that too, there's a change in terms of what a family consists of. Who is you have different kinds of families according to the new textbooks. But I want to say that the question that we're asking, the question that we want to know, what is it that men can do? How can you teach men or boys when they get older to become that leader, that provider, that protector, that individual, take that role, that responsibility that he needs to take when as an adult, as a man? Because I find that even though women are not stupid, a lot of women in their relationships with men, um, they want to extract from man, get money. They want to get as much as they can. Yeah, they want to be in the latest fashion, latest style. They see the man, oh, he's a man, so I'm his woman, I'm his girl. I'm supposed to buy this for me. He's supposed to take care of me. They understand that. But when it comes to now the role, when it comes to now being a man as um the area that you guys have mentioned, they don't think about these things. They're just seeing the money.
I have a question for you, something you just said. You apparently agree with, member, with the president that technology, and I would add the passage of time, has uh, influenced changes in the role of men. My question is, whatever that new role is, are men fulfilling it? So if the role of men 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago is different, or the role of men today is different from what it was 100, 200, 500 years ago. It's different today in 2024. As per your observation and knowledge and understanding, are men fulfilling that new role? And maybe the president can proffer a view as well.
No, I don't think they're fulfilling that role.
So then
Because
the fundamental issue remains.
But,
right.
but let me just dive in here. I'm into the technology. I am very much into the technology. So, as you said earlier, you cannot teach what you don't know,
Right,
and you cannot lead to where you don't go.
right.
So, in the technology of the matter, men are still perverting the ways. If TikTok, Instagram, YouTube,
What's up?
well, no, I'm talking about these streaming
Okay. Yeah,
apps,
sorry.
right? And they have a few others. And there is a lot of men, women too, but a lot of men, and they have things to share. Now, it all depends on what it is that you're interested in, because the algorithm on TikTok is very, very strong. The algorithm on YouTube is strong as well. And what I realize is that men at a certain age, maybe my age group and behind, very gullible,
Hmm.
very, very gullible. Everything they hear, they believe. Everything they see, they believe. The generation today understand illusion. The generation, my generation and I'm back, don't seem to understand illusion. So they think everything that they see is real and true. I mean, they had this thing used to, I don't know if you see it on TV, wrestling. Wrestling was just entertainment. And there are persons I remember thinking that this is something really
Actually
happening
real, and yeah.
because they're that gullible. So my recommendation, even though you didn't ask for it, my recommendation is that that age group that don't understand the technology need to stay away from it. So if that did create a role, which it didn't really necessarily create a role, it caused more distractions than was there before. But for some, it definitely created some avenues to reach more people, depending on what it is that is being shared. And also, it kind of brings some sense of balance between parents and children for those who understand the technology. For those who don't understand the technology, of course, the children gonna run rings around the parents. So in my opinion, I don't think the technology brought any new roles, and so therefore, in the sense of fulfilling those roles, if there's a new role, then that new role have to be defined and say what is this new role that technology has brought to us, so and men are affected in any shape
Yeah.
where taking this new role in any way.
Yeah,
So
then he said that the technology is affecting the family structure. And he said that, and we are all aware that a lot of children in the family, you go into a home, perhaps tonight you go to visit a home and you might see the daughter on the phone, WhatsApping, or the mother maybe on her phone, checking out
so don't you see the problem there?
and there's no communication.
Right, so don't you see the problem there? The man is not manning, so to speak. The man is not manning up because the fact that they're doing all that is because they want something to do. They need to be occupied with something. Their thoughts running, right? So where is it easy to go? Go to your phone, go to your tablet. Now the man in that environment should be at least an initiator of things that the family can do,
Together, yes.
right? Also, being the provider, if he is, because the book says a man who ain't the provider is like an infidel. So if he is a provider, a teacher, and someone who inspire the family, then you wouldn't see what you're talking about there. So it's just like, and I know I'm probably gonna get hit for this. It's just like looking at a woman pastor in a church. A woman pastor in a church because no men in there stepping up, and the woman is not gonna sit still. They're not gonna just sit still and roll over. They're gonna take the lead because the men are not leading. So while some scriptures speak against it, it is not necessarily a commandment as such that a woman can't lead, because in the time of the children of Israel, you have women who were judging Israel for quite some time. No. So, no, pastor didn't, the word pastor wasn't even invented yet. I don't think. But I'm just talking about taking leadership. And the book says, as a punishment for mankind, he will put women to rule over the men and also children. So for those of you who just read your good books, it's in there. That a part of the punishment, and today we find some people, like for instance, we hear tonight as adult men, grown men. You might hear, well, Blake, why y'all didn't carry a youth with you? No, this is not for youth. One of these days we might have a topic that a youth could be involved in. But this topic here is not for you. This is for a youth to maybe be on the next end
Listening and learning.
So you cannot put youths where youths don't belong. But some people want to push youths in every and any way, and that's simply because they don't understand how certain things work.
And it's not provided. It's not proven to be beneficial.
It's not proven to be beneficial.
But I'm looking at the time. I wanted to give the president the last word.
No, I'm just, as I listen to these discussions and the thoughts that are coming out. I'm very well. I'm being informed. I must say that because
We're learning from each other.
we're learning from
You're hopeful for the men.
Yes, as a man, I hope there is hope for us. I think you look around and sometimes you really wonder, what's happening. I mean, change is happening so fast. I mean, it's revolutionizing our thoughts, our minds, our deeds, everything. Think of, and you sometimes have to wonder, okay, where will it end? When will it stop? And how do we change it to the way it should be? Because apparently a lot of things that are happening and are changing. It's if we use the word, going in the wrong direction sometimes, and we see sometimes it starts as a good thought, as a good action, but somehow it gets perverted along the way. And this is one way. You have thoughts from people being brought up differently. Even if you have a central situation like like a class, a class in school, and you have a group of students, but as a teacher, I mean, you could have from 0 to 100 in terms of thinking,
Mhm.
and if you have a situation where you're supposed to be bringing youngsters up into the community, hopefully in a positive manner, but you still have the forces that are fighting you and that they can't divert from or to in case of good or bad, because once you have one, the teacher who's teaching, two, you have the environment, three, you have the home, you have the body system. So even for youngsters to mold themselves into a particular pattern that we hope they would go, we find that there's problems and it's just too difficult to get everybody in the same direction that we hoped they would go. So it's
There's just so many voices to listen to.
that is true. That is true. So again, we hope somewhere along the line that some compromise can be made both with the teachers and the students, no matter what the age is. Again, like you mentioned, that even though you're a grown person, you still could be a student in learning certain things. If you're going the wrong track, then being a student means that somebody should be able to be uh, taking you or carrying you or leading you in the right direction. And hopefully that would be a blessing or a good thing or a positive action that could probably help the community. And so,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being so kind as to be with us and to listen to us. Again, we apologize for not being able to accommodate your participation by calling in, but I promise you that by next time, which will be on the 25th of this month, 2 Mondays from now, we will in fact have that facility set up where you can talk with us and we can share with you and you share with us your views on this matter. And so I believe that it is in order to say thanks to Brother Weeks, my former student, by the way. He was a good student when I taught him at Keon High. And thank you very much for allowing us to access his studio, his facility, and we hope to use it to our advantage and to your benefit. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and be good.
good night.